Think about all the bad times you had with your Wi-Fi and with your internet experience. And most of them could be solved with proper connectivity and proper what we call in-house networking.
Good afternoon, how are you doing? Delighted this afternoon to be talking about connectivity. Connectivity across the whole country, and to tell us a little bit more, being joined by Julien Lachios, Technical Director of MyConnectivity, and of course the CEO, Geraldine Knudsen. Geraldine, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jim.
Now guys, connectivity, I have to be perfectly honest with you. Sometimes I feel a bit overwhelmed with data already. Do we really need more?
We need a more resilient and more broadly available connectivity, yes, for a sustainable future and for enabling new services, yeah, definitely.
I mean, come on, Geraldine, I imagine, sorry to say this, you and I were about the same age. Do you feel like me? Do you feel a bit overwhelmed by data?
Yeah, but I mean, on the other side, when I look back, nobody ever used data, and that was also very, kind of quiet times in a way. Nowadays, everything has to do with data, and we're all dependent on it. I mean, think about a world without Google, So, yes, I mean, the reality is more and more, we need to have it, and that's just not natural development. Yeah.
Okay, so your anticipation is that society will want more data, and therefore we all have a sort of a role to play in enabling that. I mean, what is your role actually? How are you enabling greater connectivity?
So as MyConnectivity, we sit in the middle of the ecosystem, Luxembourgish ecosystem, to find out what are the limitations, what are the blockers to 100% coverage and adoption of these networks, and we are here to solve those problems.
Right, and is your problem solving, is this more to do with the technical side of actually enabling the operators to do that final mile, or is it to do with the people side?
It has a lot to do with the people, but it also has a lot to do with technology. So let me explain. I mean, we have three major subjects. We want the entire country be covered with these ultra high speed networks, and there's 5% left, and there's just, support and project management support for communes, for example, to be had, and just an awareness also of communes that they can do things to get to the point where they are completely there. And then you've got the second issue, which is that even those people who could potentially have access to fiber networks or to cable networks that are equally capable of delivering this speed, they don't. Only 60% do. And so we need to convince them on the one hand, and on the other hand, we need to solve technical issues, especially in houses with more than one household.
Right, I see. I mean, come on, we're only a small country. The POS could have done this already, couldn't they? Why are they finding it so tough to do the final 5-10% of the country?
In every technical project, the last percentage are the more difficult to address, the more costly and the more difficult. And so we are here to find out the best solutions in terms of technical possibilities, but also cooperations or any creative idea that can accelerate and reduce the cost to do that.
Right, and in terms of convincing people, you mentioned earlier on about multi-family households, for example. I mean, is this really about enabling people to work more from home?
It's, it's everything. I mean, if you look at, working, playing, educating yourself, it all happens on data. And if you don't have the data at home, you will not be able to participate. So, yes.
Right. So you've talked about the working and the gaming, but what about there may be some people who don't want to be connected. Is there a risk that we're sort of forcing this on them and they don't actually want it?
Mm-hmm. I don't think we're forcing anybody. I mean, I think that it's all about creating the opportunity. Now, at the end, obviously the final decision is with the individual, but I think that everybody should have the possibility to participate and nobody should be left behind. This is about, enabling the society and enabling the people that live here to really, be part of, a resilient, dynamic and prosperous society.
Mm-hmm. Now, before we came together for this conversation, I was wondering about the Internet of Things. Do you reckon this is going to become a reality here in Luxembourg?
It's already a reality. In many communes or in many locations, you have already IoT being used for many services, for metering or for maintenance or for any kind of surveillance applications. It's already a reality.
Right, wow. scary.
No, it's not.
And when we reflect on the pandemic sort of taught us a few lessons. From a technical perspective, what insights do you think you gained from the pandemic?
I think I want to come back to the point that Julien just made on IoT, because I think that makes it very obvious why we need more data, and the pandemic, because all of a sudden people were sitting at home. They weren't probably alone. They had families, kids that need to be homeschooled, and then IoT. IoT also uses data. So besides the 3-4 people that live in a household, things start talking to each other as well. So the data, needs just grow exponentially. And so I think that this is what people underestimate, who think they sit at the end of a decent line and they can do, their streaming. But things just start happening simultaneously, and that's when it becomes more important.
And what's your sense for here in Luxembourg? Do you reckon there's a chance for us to become leaders in this field?
Yes, absolutely. We are on the way to that. Luxembourg is very highly ranked in Europe in terms of VHCN, which stands for Very High Capacity Networks, across other member states. And we see Luxembourg as also a place where external companies could start prototyping or exploring a new way of living, because we have a very good digital infrastructure.
And do you think, going back to the cabling topic again, when is this going to happen? When are we going to see this high level of connectivity with high speeds everywhere?
Well, very latest 2030, and even before that, because the country, the post has a copper network, and next year, at the beginning of next year, they will start to slowly switch off street by street this copper network. And that's when people have to be migrated to fiber or cable. So they have two options. They can either migrate to fiber network, or they can use the cable network of the cable operator. They're both capable of doing this, but they will have to act. It's now, and 2030 is when this process should be finished.
Wow. So for people who are currently using
after tomorrow
cable for using the copper network, they've really got to hurry up and adapt to the change.
Yeah, but what I can add, this transition will not necessarily mean more expensive subscriptions for consumers. It's a technological transition which is required for more sustainability, also because the new networks are consuming less energy. But at the end of the day, it's up to the consumer to decide if he wants to take an expensive or a more affordable subscription. It's two different things: upgrading the infrastructure and the commercial offers.
Sometimes when I see all of this work being done by the providers, all of these cables in the streets, and Luxembourg feels like it has a lot of digging up roads. I don't know if it's just my imagination, but I thought that 5G and mobile was going to be the strategy going forward, but you seem to be saying we still need cable. Is that true?
Cable, fiber, yes, because really, really high capacity, and also, so anything that is wireless, you're always limited in the volume of the data that you can receive. And if you exceed that volume, you will have to pay more. With terrestrial infrastructure, that means with a fiber or a cable, you will not have to do that, because that is only about speed, and you can take as much data as you like out of it. Nobody will limit you, and so there's a big difference. And I think it's also, if you talk about resilience, it's a matter of resilience to have networks that can replace one another. Yeah.
Okay, well, almost out of time now, but. Yeah, I'm going to same question to each of you. If you had somebody standing in front of you who was a little bit hesitant about change and cynical, what would be your one key message to them in terms of updating their connectivity? Julien.
So think about all the bad times you had with your Wi-Fi and with your internet experience, and most of them could be solved with proper connectivity and proper what we call in-house networking.
Very good. And Geraldine?
Well, there's exciting times ahead. On the one hand, there's more applications and stuff coming that is really exciting and maybe fun doing. Then it's also to be prepared for, another. I don't want to say we're going to get another pandemic, but to be prepared. And then it's also about the fact that the copper network is going to be switched off, and might as well act now, because we know from studies from Sweden, for example, that the property value is in direct connection with the level of connectivity. So I think that everybody who owns property has a vested interest in upgrading it, because it's going to be hard to rent something out, if you don't. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. That was Julien Lagos and Geraldine Knudsen from MyConnectivity.